This is going to come as a shock to many of you, so go ahead, brace yourselves. Today, we're talking about Iowa State baseball. That's right, here at Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day and making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Wherever you're watching or listening, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, speaking of Cyclone state, I saw the Iowa State baseball team beat Iowa. We have to talk about Iowa State baseball. Got some thoughts rolling, found some things there. You're going to want to stick around and hear more about that. Then we're going to talk about the Helton twins who did enter the transfer portal. They found a home. We'll talk about that in the second segment, and then kind of just refresh where the Iowa State offensive line is at now. And finally, we'll round things out today with some softball talk. What's going on with Iowa State women's softball? Obviously, crushing it, but what is new? Can't wait to get into all that and more. But first, this episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV locked on to learn more. Okay, now this probably seems a little bit out of the blue, out of the woodwork, very surprising. I agree. I am not going to lie to you. We are kind of in that period of the year where not a whole lot of news popping off. And I saw Iowa State beat Iowa in basically club baseball or whatever it is exactly. I'm not entirely sure, but it grabbed my attention because, yeah, it's a Cyclone state. And I'm not really too shocked by that. But I was like, wait, what's going on here? Digging into a little bit, found some articles from kind of middle of basketball season. And apparently, now, this is all, I'm reading this article. This is an observe and report situation. So if I am incorrect in any of this, I apologize. It's just what I'm reading here, and then I'll give my opinion. So UNI and Iowa State baseball teams were cut. Now, Iowa State's been over 20 years now. It was back in 01, April 2nd of 01 is what I'm reading. I don't know when UNI's was exactly. I'm sure it's in here. They could be coming back because of some Iowa bill in the legal side of things. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. I am as far from anything tied to legal as like you could possibly get. I just want to know what's going on between the painted lines, if that makes sense. But when things going on in the legal sphere affect the lines, the painted lines, we got to talk about it. And so I did my best to understand what's going on here. Apparently, House File 153 would revive Iowa State and University of Northern Iowa's men's baseball teams to compete at the NCAA Division I level. The legislation would require the State Board of Regents to reinstate the teams. I don't know if the names really matter here. To be honest, it's more about what could happen. I don't know if this is like what the timeline is on this or what. I would imagine, because it feels like everything just moves really, really slow, that this is going to take a few years if it were to happen. Basically, when I read through this, it's going to look at like adding a women's wrestling squad as well to kind of abide by that Title IX situation. Just based on some general internet browsing, there's some that are really pumped up about this and some that are indifferent and some that are really against this. And, well, that's basically everything ever. So let me know where you stand on this down in the comments below, just because I'm curious. I think this is really neat. You know, I was a wrestler in high school, so I love to see kind of the sport of wrestling growing if you get that women's team. I know that especially at the high school level now, you know, when I was in high school, it was just barely starting. Like that was the beginning, was right when I was around there, and now it's huge. And it's mentioned in this article just how full the state championships were on the women's side. He doesn't exactly say if it was high school or what, but nonetheless, it's not like nobody goes and watches women's wrestling. It's very, very real. And then baseball wise, Iowa State, the only team in the Big 12 to not have a baseball team by my research. So I'm not really against it. Like, I think that'd be really cool and something to kind of carry through this portion of the year. Obviously, softball going, and we will talk about that in the third segment. But also, like, just more sports this time of the year, a great thing. I know track and field is also killing it. Not to get too far off topic here, but I think they won the Drake relays or whatever it is at the college level. So that was really, really neat. I don't know how this is going to work. It seems like it's being forced onto the schools because their state school or something like that is kind of what I'm getting here. Allegedly, the reason the baseball team was cut in 2001 was due to budget reasons. Now, going into this whole rev share situation, I don't know what that looks like. To be completely honest, this adds a whole nother wrinkle. If someone outside the university is forcing the university by some bill to add these teams, what happens with scholarships, with rev share dollars? I believe the facilities are in place. If they might need a little bit of revamping potentially, I don't think we need to pour millions into a new facility. I believe I was just driving by there the other day. I don't think maybe they do. I haven't unfortunately stopped out there in quite some time, but nonetheless, I think they could probably use that west facility. I think. I don't know. Maybe they need to revamp the parking lot because it's grass right now. So you're going to probably see some money go into that because it is a club level right now. Um, I don't know what that looks like from a monetary standpoint, to be completely honest, because Iowa State already on that line. We talked so much about when RevShare was introduced, Iowa State, you only get up to 22%, and then you can cap out at 20.5 million. Does Iowa State hit that number? Do they stretch for the 20.5 million number? It looks like in the last few years they're able to hit it, but is it a number that they want to push for? That's a question in and of itself. And then on a down year, it seems like there were certainly years where Iowa State didn't make enough for that 22% to even cap out at 20.5. And then on top of that, if you don't cap out at it, how much of that are you really going to use? If you use all 22% and you're not at 20.5 million, is there a conversation where it's like, okay, maybe we should tone it back? We can use up to 17 million of that 22%. With that 22%, but we should really only probably be using maybe 15 or 13 million just because of we got to pour money into these other spots. I imagine adding a baseball team and a women's wrestling team is going to cause some sort of strain there. I don't know what that does to existing sports. I would imagine they don't go anywhere if this is forced upon the university. Like I said, I don't exactly understand this, and I only found a few articles on this from a few months ago. So I don't know how fast this is moving either. But the concept, if we're going to look at this in a positive light, which is how I generally try to look at things, I think this is really cool for the university. Obviously, more athletes showcasing their talent in the state of Iowa. Right now, just looking at it from the baseball perspective, Iowa is the only D1 school that has a baseball program, right? Because I talked about UNI and ISU both cut theirs. So if you're in the state of Iowa and you want to play baseball and you don't make Iowa's team, which you could only try for Iowa's team, then you don't make it. Now you got to go out of state. Like that's your only option unless you want to play at a smaller level. So opening up this program just allows a lot more in-state kids to be able to showcase their talents and abilities at Iowa State in the state of Iowa. I think that's a great thing there. Obviously, the women's wrestling whole deal there. Obviously, I'm a wrestling guy. Like I said, wrestled in high school. I think that's great for the game there. Just kind of more eyes on wrestling. It gets more people involved, more opportunities for women wrestlers in high school to move up to the next level. I think that's great as well. I just don't understand the money side of this, but from the concept of more athletes getting to perform and compete in Iowa State, basically jerseys, with the Cyclones across their chest or Iowa State across their chest or whatever the case might be, depending on the uniform. I think that's a good thing. But to be completely honest, I'm not super versed in the books. I didn't graduate with an accounting degree, unfortunately. So let me know down below. There's probably things that I just don't understand. I just think this would be really cool. It's been so long since Iowa State had a baseball team. I have to imagine that place would be packed for at least the few first games. Then I don't know what it would look like after that, because obviously it was kind of struggling at that time, and it is what it is. Speaking of struggling, Iowa State's offensive line doing just the opposite of that, according to Matt Campbell and his post spring game kind of presser there. But we did lose the Helton twins. Where did they go, and where does Iowa State sit now? We're talking about that coming up right after this. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. I use Game Time because the all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. And along with the 60% off, buying last-minute tickets for sports, they've also got concerts, comedy, theater, you name it, they've got it. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So the Iowa State offensive line room is an area that I was a little surprised to hear very high praise come from Matt Campbell, but nonetheless, seems like it's an area that Iowa State is going to be just fine in moving forward. Some transfers in, unfortunately, some transfers out, and we're talking about that here right now at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Helton twins transfer out of Iowa State. We talked about this a few weeks ago. I thought this was kind of a big deal. Obviously, 4 years of eligibility remaining for the two dudes from, I believe, SoCal is where they were out of. And I'm just going to say it right now. They went to Arizona State. Now, I read this article kind of, with them talking about it. And I guess it was between BYU and ASU. Okay, two acronyms. I guess Iowa State, ISU, kind of in there. But nonetheless, apparently they weren't in the conversation. So I guess that's good for them. That's a great place to go. Obviously, ASU, the reigning Big 12 champions, and that's great. But I'm not going to focus too much on where they headed now because I unfortunately don't know a whole lot about Arizona State. It's just not what I do. So if you want to go learn more about it, I'm sure Richie Bradshaw of Locked On Sun Devils has you covered. Part of Locked On Podcast Network. Great work over there. So go check that out. Maybe we'll get him in here. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit. Who knows? But let's talk a little bit about Iowa State's offensive line room and kind of where they're at right now. Why this team, is going to be okay without the Helton twins. Two awesome dudes. Two dudes who have they have a lot of ability, but I think that Iowa State will be fine. Now, obviously, we've talked about Austin Barrett from Indiana and Derek Jensen from Wisconsin. Two additions in that Matt Campbell thought had a lot of talent, a lot of ability, but this room kind of already has that. So it's kind of this is where we're going in the future. I don't think I said this the last time I talked about this. That feels a little bit like a risky play in 2025. In maybe 2016, okay. I don't think you'd probably be getting transfers at that point. But okay, we're going to set up for 3 years from now when this is what the room will look like. Kind of know that. And these two dudes are very, very good. They're going to sit for these 2 years. They're going to develop. They're going to learn the offense. They're going to learn what it takes to be an Iowa State offensive lineman, to be a D1 Big 12 offensive lineman. And then they're going to come in and they're going to light it up. I'll tell you right here, right now. Okay, if that's the case, that's great. If that's what actually happens here, that feels like a 2016 scenario, what I just laid out. I said it in the mindset like I am in 2016, because that feels like that's how it probably went down. But this is 2025, and you just saw two stud young dudes transfer out of Iowa State. You got two young dudes coming in, but who's to say that they don't just turn right back around? I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just saying that it's kind of the reality of the situation we're in. And maybe that's the reality of the situation we're in today. And in 1 year, it will be different with rev share and with maybe some more control potentially. Who knows? Because even from last year to this time, this time to right now, so much has changed. So I can't even begin to comprehend what will happen in 1 year from now, let alone 3, 4 years from now, when Jensen and Barrett are potentially kind of heeding the storm of opposing teams' defensive lines. Like I just don't know what that'll look like. And so I was thinking about it just now. Like, feel like that's kind of. I wonder if that feels a little risky just to make that play. But these dudes have the ability. They're going to come in, through the summer and through fall camp. They're going to cause competition. That's better for everybody. Right. Let's not focus too much on down the line. I think right here, right now, what they're doing is pursuing a starting spot. And what does that do? Force the guys who potentially may have a starting spot right now to up their game so they can secure their spot. And what does that mean? Iowa State's offensive line gets better. So still a win-win. Just in thinking about that, I was like, I feel like that's a little kind of, it's not, just a slight bit risky to kind of approach it from that angle. But I think at the end of the day, Iowa State with the culture we talk about repeatedly will be fine. Now, some other names that kind of came up. Remember when Ryan Clanton got in front of the media during this spring training period, had some great things to say. I remember specifically the way he talked about these guys made me want to run through a wall, made me want to play for him, go to war for him. And he was wearing that Rocco Becht hat. Remember Tyler Miller was wearing the flow like Rocco shirt. Like this team, it's got chemistry out the wazoo, and they all are looking to protect Rocco like none other. And that's a trait you want in your offensive line for sure. Some names that were thrown around: Trevor Burr, Dylan Barrett, Garrett Rutledge, Brendan Black, a dude that's been talked about a lot for sure. Potentially switching over to center. Who knows what the movement is going to look like? I still haven't gotten anything on my end to know exactly where these guys could be, but we're still also a long ways from the season. And this is a room that they've talked about being just kind of roll their eyes back and go run someone over, go out and play. They've spent a few years with this system, at least the older guys for sure. This system has been in place at Iowa State. There was some plug and play last year with guys even playing some tight end, and just more knowledge of the offense in general is going to give this offensive line a leg up from just even last year. I do agree that this team, like this offensive line, this unit is going to be good. I think the reason I was hesitant to think that and was a little bit kind of surprised by what Matt Campbell had said, because obviously Coach Clanton is going to say, like, this is a really good offensive line team. Like, that's kind of his thing. It's his unit, makes complete sense. But when Matt Campbell spoke glowingly about the offensive line, I was kind of like, I would have definitely picked linebacker or tight end. Like, just based on what I've been hearing, that's where I would have gone, and he went offensive line. I think part of it is just that these guys, they're totally ready to pin their ears back and go out there and mow someone over. But I think that the reason I was kind of hesitant, in comparison to the linebacker and tight end room, is one, because the linebacker and tight end rooms are so, in my opinion, much better than last year. For one, like it's like comparing a 30 to a 100, right? Like if a 40 is really good, like a 30 normally a very good score, but like 100, it's kind of like it's way better, of course. So like that felt like that's where I was at with this whole thing. If that makes sense, it probably doesn't. But my point being, I guess that's just, I guess my concerns of not knowing where everyone's going to be are not validated, basically, by Matt Campbell is kind of where I'm trying to get here. I think this offensive line room, just based on these names, not concerned about the loss of the Helton twins. Very excited to see where, what kind of noise they make at ASU. I believe Iowa State plays ASU, and I believe it's at home. So that'll be kind of fun, just in general as a Big 12 championship rematch on top of this whole thing. Hopefully we don't have to see him twice. I know they're returning a ton. I believe Scadaboo was the only one drafted from that team, and I think they had like 17 of 22 starters return or something ridiculous. Like I said, you have to go to Sun Devils to figure that out, but just an absolute unit over there. Don't want to run into them more times than we have to. So shout out to the Heltons. Hopefully they can see success, but Iowa State obviously going to see more. Runs in kind of the program, runs in the blood that is Iowa State. The softball team is experiencing it right here, right now. And we're going to talk about that coming up right after this. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Think about that. You win, you get $250 in bonus bets. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. So we've talked so much about baseball today, and it, kind of caught me off guard as well. Why? Well, Iowa State doesn't have a baseball team, but Iowa State does have a softball team that is absolutely killing it right now, which is super exciting to say. Like, oh, we got live sports and we are killing it, which is always exciting. Talking about it here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I don't know if you missed it. I don't know if you saw it. Nonetheless, we're going to talk about it, mention it really quick. Iowa State softball made the top 4 in the Sports Center top 10 the other day. That was super exciting. McKenna Andrews out at third base, tips it up, dives, makes the play just outside of that foul line there, saving the play. I believe it was against Utah. ESPN, posted the video. MLB posted the video. Absolutely awesome for Iowa State to make that kind of attention, but it's all because of Andrews' play. Just thought that was worth mentioning first and foremost. Now, let's talk about where Iowa State sits in the standings, because we don't talk about it all the time. It's something that comes up from time to time. We'll mention it. Iowa State kind of killing it in the Big 12 right now. I believe sitting in third. I lost the site here. Yes, sitting in third at 13-8 in the Big 12. Texas Tech at first, 18-3. Arizona 14-7. Then you got Arizona State nipping on Iowa State's heels there at 14-10. So one more win, 2 more losses. Slightly worse win percentage by about 2% there. So really, really close. Then you've got BYU, OSU, a team that Iowa State beat. Remember, Baylor, UCF, Kansas, Utah, Houston. So pretty good. Be in the top 3 in the Big 12. I believe they're just shattering records left and right. We talked about it last time. I believe they had the most, conference wins in a year, and there was like with 10 games to go or something ridiculous. So shout out to them for that. Coming up, they'll be playing Iowa in Iowa City today, actually, which is exciting. And then they'll take on Drake on Wednesday. Then they've got a series with Baylor stretching till the 4th, and then starting on May 7th, the Big 12 softball championships in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma will begin. We got a couple games left to kind of see where Iowa State shakes out, but I think this is a team that can make a run at that kind of championship. I mean, I'd say we're poised. I don't know a ton about it, but the Baylor series, I think, will potentially sweep in that. I do think we'll get Iowa again. Drake at home, always a great kind of exciting little Iowa deal there. This team, very good. I believe they broke the record for most runs in a game against Utah, is what I saw. They run ruled them, to my knowledge. That's exciting. I think it was 18-7 is what I've got here. That's always a good sign, right? That's kind of what it felt like when Iowa State men's basketball scored 108 against UCF. It was kind of like, all right, this team can come out, they can score, they could play. Things didn't pan out for that Iowa State men's basketball team. I know. I was there. Let's pause. Moment has passed. But I think that was largely due to injuries. We've talked so much about that team. We don't have to dive into it here, but I'm just saying that that's a good sign, right? You score 18 runs. That's we're getting into football scores, 18-7. 18-7. How would you end up with that? 14, maybe 2 safeties, 2 touchdowns? That could happen. Two touchdowns, 2 2-point conversions, and a safety. That'd be kind of nice, right? Yeah, that math adds up. Then Utah, obviously, with just 1 touchdown, is what that would be. Maybe you threw a couple field goals in there. I mean, you could score hypothetically 6 field goals to get to 18. Kyle Conrarty, MVP of that game, and Utah gets a touchdown. Ooh, what would you rather see? 6 field goals or 2 touchdowns and 2 safeties? I think I'm going to go 6 field goals just because I'm a special teams guy. Nonetheless, Iowa State killing it on the diamond right now. Obviously, looking forward to kind of sweeping the rest of this season. Iowa State right now, I believe, on an absolute heater in their last 16 games or something like that. Where is it right here? 23 games, 17-6 over the last month. That's, I don't know, is that good? You tell me. That's exciting. And then Iowa, obviously a team that Iowa State beat just a few weeks ago. Heading into this one, Iowa is 6-1 since that last game. So still a solid team, which makes you feel better about that win, of course. The win over OSU, when I mentioned where they're at in standings, it's like, okay, well, yeah, they were ranked, but like where are they at this year? Especially with that being kind of earlier in the season. Maybe it's not worth as much as we had initially thought, right? Kind of the same thing with the basketball program. Like Iowa State's win over Iowa in Iowa City, that's going to be a key signature win. Then Iowa didn't really do anything all year, and it was like, okay, maybe that's not worth quite as much as we initially thought. Softball, a bit of an interesting game, a different game, just because it's so pitcher and batter based. It's hard to really. Obviously, you're going to have pitchers that stand out like that, we know, and you're going to have batters that bat really well, but you're just going to have some matchups as well. Kind of the same thing with maybe a football team shoot, Iowa State, ASU in the Big 12 championship. Like Arizona State could just run the rock, and Iowa State, with all the injuries they had to that linebacking core especially, couldn't really stop the run. And that wasn't the only problem in that game, I remember, but certainly opened up the door for Arizona State in that one. And that's kind of how I feel like softball goes. I haven't watched a ton of softball. Maybe I'll have to get out to that Drake game here this week. That could be exciting. Get out to the diamond. Maybe we should all get out to the diamond once or twice and show some support for the softball team that seems to be making a lot of noise right now, and could be looking to sweep Baylor after beating Iowa and Drake, and then go into that Big 12 championship kind of tournament. And of course, they're going to at least be contending for that title. Super exciting. Nothing new for the Cyclones, though, especially as of late in the last year, maybe even a little bit more. Cyclones seeing a ton of success. It is, in fact, a Cyclone state. I believe that, but I do kind of need that subscribe button down there. It's all on you guys right now. When the teams aren't playing, we're proving it with the subscribe button. I appreciate every one of you guys for sticking around to this point in the episode. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sign out.